He's never fought us. Not us united.
My favorite moment in the entire... Maybe I should complicate this before I start speaking here.
Welcome to Comics League. I'm Jared, and today, this is a little bit more of a personal episode that I really wanted to talk about because, as you guys are well aware, if you've been watching the show for any length of time, I am a fan of Zack Snyder's work. And it's particularly Zack Snyder's Justice League. But here is the issue here with the public discourse around the SnyderVerse and really the DCEU, and actually DC in general, or actually no, comic books in general, is this term gets thrown around, real fan. Like, if you like Zack Snyder's movies or you don't like Zack Snyder's movies, you're not a real DC fan, or you don't read the comic books or something like that. Now, I wanted to make this video because this is going to be like an admonition of those people. Because here's the issue. Here's the thing. Particularly with DC, ignoring Marvel. There is the problem with the whole you're not a real fan if you like the SnyderVerse, you don't like the SnyderVerse. Let me put it this way. I'm going to start with if you like the SnyderVerse, you're not a real fan. I'm going to start with that argument. The problem with that argument is that people are ignoring the fact that there have been many DC iterations of characters in the multiverse, because we're dealing with an idea with the multiverse where none of the rules apply. Like, I was in a Twitter debate with someone, and the point that I brought up was, okay, so we're dealing with the multiverse where there are many different versions of these characters. And they said, okay, so many of these, that's fine if there's different versions, but Batman can't use guns. And I'm like, Flashpoint Batman. But my point is that when you're dealing with the multiverse, there are multiple different versions of these characters that can apply to any rule. And the way I said this on Nerdette's stream is that if it has the official DC logo, if it was published by DC itself, by DC and Warner Brothers, guess what? It is a valid interpretation of the characters. Granted, you may not like that interpretation, and that's totally fine. That's your right as a fan. You don't have to like everything DC puts out, because Lord knows there are plenty of people that seem to be completely like everything DC puts out, no matter what, even if it's objectively bad. But my point is, even if it's not even if you don't like that interpretation, if it's coming from DC, guess what? That is that version of Batman. It's just a different version of the character. Now, I'm going to go to the other side. Here's the thing, though. You don't have to like Snyder stuff to be a DC fan, because there's plenty of fantastic iterations of these characters that weren't done by Snyder. Case in point, Christopher Nolan's Batman. Granted, I have a love-hate relationship with the third movie, but when you look at 1 and 2, those are some of the best Batman movies of all time. Some elements of the Timverse work really well, the DCAU, the DCAMU. There are plenty of valid and really great interpretations of DC that didn't involve Snyder. I'm just going to tell you that right there. And there's too many people in the fan base that say that if it's not Snyder, it's not DC, or if it's not Snyder, we don't want it. And I'm like, guess what, dude? Snyder's not going to be here forever, first off. But the second off is that you have to support the other products, because guess what? That way, Warner Brothers Discovery has the money to invest in the SnyderVerse, because right now, Warner Brothers Discovery is strapped for money. And you have to support Black Adam, because if these movies don't make money, they are going to reboot the universe and completely do away with the SnyderVerse. Completely. Then just start fresh. That's going to be... And then guess what? No one gets what they want. So support these movies so they have the capital to put behind the SnyderVerse revival. So that's my high horse. But my point is that there shouldn't be in the fan base this whole, oh, if you like this, you're not a real DC fan. If you don't like this, you're not a real DC fan, or you don't read the comics. I'm going to address that one real quick. First off, you're accusing someone whose username is Comics League, posts about his YouTube channel where he talks about comic books, not just Snyder stuff, comic books all the time. I'm pretty sure I read comics. You can see my background. Pretty sure I read comics. My point is that you don't read comics. That's not a valid criticism to someone. Because which comics? I just don't. Maybe I didn't read the same comics you did, or we just interpreted those comics differently. It doesn't mean I don't read comics. It just means that I interpreted them differently, or I didn't read the ones you did. Because I got news for you: Batman has existed pre-SnyderVerse. He has existed since the 1930s. 1939, I believe, was when Batman showed up. And there have been many different interpretations of Batman, including where he used a gun. And according to DC, all of those are valid. So you know what? There's a world in the multiverse where that exists, and the SnyderVerse is in the multiverse. So I got news for you. Every version of these characters that has been put out by DC, this is my prime point, is a valid portion. Now, I'm going to make, and ordinarily I don't throw around the not a real fan, but I feel like I have to put this label out right now. If you denigrate someone simply because, now ignoring the sometimes toxicity of both sides of the movement, ignoring that part, if you denigrate someone purely because they like a certain part of a certain interpretation of these characters, and this goes for the SnyderVerse fans that bash people that like Justice League. I'm gonna stand up for those people too. If you denigrate someone simply for liking a certain interpretation of these characters, then you yourself are not a real DC fan. Because I got news for you: there have been many different interpretations of these characters. Again, granted, they have been kooky at times, but liking a certain interpretation of the characters, because there are certain people I've encountered that like Golden Age stuff and bust. I may not like a lot of Golden Age stuff, but you know what? Still DC, they're still DC fans. They're just DC fans that like a particular version of it. They're DC fans that just like the SnyderVerse and are just completely civil. That's fine. That's totally fine. You are no less of a DC fan than I am. I like Snyder stuff, but I also like the other stuff too. My point is, no matter what portion of DC you like, as long as you're being respectful of other people, guess what? You are a DC fan, no matter what version of it if you like. If you like the Whedonverse, the Hamadaverse, Snyderverse, the comics, the Golden Age, the Modern Age, even if you like Son of Kal-El for some reason, you are a DC fan. It doesn't matter. Don't let anyone ever tell you otherwise. It's that simple. I'm not going to... it's that simple. It really is that simple. And I honestly can't believe I have to make this video, because you know what? I shouldn't have to make this video. We should all understand that you just like a different... you just like what you like. Let me put it this way. Like what you like, I could care less. As long as you're being respectful of other people, like what you like, you are a DC fan. If you like the classic stuff, modern stuff, if you like Future State, if you like, there are some people that like Heroes in Crisis. I'm a dude that likes Tom King's Batman. Doesn't make me any less of a Batman fan, because you know what? I like all these different interpretations, because that's the thing about DC with the multiverse. More than Marvel, DC has all these fascinating interpretations of these characters. DC with the multiverse, except for when the fans freak out for no reason, with the multiverse, the way DC does it, they have the opportunity to explore all these different iterations of these characters. Like you have one where Batman becomes a vampire. There's one where Batman or Kal-El crashes in Gotham, and then Batman becomes Superman. There's one where Batman gets the Green Lantern ring instead of Hal Jordan. There's one where Batman is a murdering psychopath. It's called Flashpoint, or Grim Knight, or any of the Dark Knights of Barbados. There's one where he's a bat god. There's one where he kills Darkseid and goes back in time. My point is, there are so many different interpretations of these characters, and just because you may like one more than the other, it doesn't make you any less of a DC fan. You are a DC fan. You are welcome on this channel. I want to emphasize that enough. Even if you hate Snyder, because I have some people that come on this channel or like in the comments that hate Snyder. I do not care. As long as you are okay and respectful of me because I like Snyder, you can do it. You can like what you... I will never, ever, ever say you can't come to this channel. I may make fun of you because that's just respectfully, because that's part of the fun. But as long as you're not like saying, well, you're not a DC fan and you're not welcome here, that is toxic fandom. I'm just going to tell you this right now. Denigrating someone because they like a certain interpretation of the characters, that itself is toxic. Sorry, I'm just going to say it. Even if you're anti-Snyder and always accusing the SnyderVerse fans of being toxic, I got news for you. You yourself are toxic if you have engaged in this behavior. got news for you. You, to quote Obi-Wan, you have become the very evil you swore to destroy. I need that clip because I use it so many, I reference it so many times. So on that note, I'm going to call this one to an end because I don't want to go on a rant for like an hour. I hope you guys will heed what I say and just share this video to anyone you think needs to hear this, because ultimately this is a message that I think has to be spread, because too often, because I feel like if the fan base were more united and more like respectful towards one another, I think that talking about DC would become less of a chore and more of like a fun activity to engage in. Because guess what? Ultimately, guess what? We're talking about fictional characters. It's not like we're talking about global war or like stuff that's actually going to affect the real life outside. We're talking about fictional characters in a comic book. It shouldn't be this crazy. There shouldn't be like friends breaking up or people sending death threats to people just because they like a certain interpretation of the character. It makes no sense. So share this video to whoever you think needs to see this. SnyderVerse fan, un-SnyderVerse fan, I could care less. This applies to both. I hope I have been fair to both sides. I have pointed out the problems of both sides of the fan base. And guess what? No one side is innocent. You could argue that some of the blame belongs more on one side for how the debate got, but no one side is innocent, is completely innocent. I got news for you. On that note, stay heroic, and I will see you in the next video. All right, no, bye.